Hello and welcome back to MULCH. How are you? I'm feeling a bit trapped and caged in as I record this episode. It's wet, so wet here in Leeds at the moment, and even though I do work in the rain, there's a limit, isn't there? There's a limit in January, so I'm feeling a bit trapped and like I want to get out and get some more muddy, mucky work done in preparation for the season ahead. That said, work is steady away in the field and at home with the propagation bits, and that's a nice pace for me for January. Before I dig into this week's podcast, I thought I'd say hello to our new listeners. I can see from the listening stats that we've got some new people listening, so welcome. I would love to know who you are, where you're listening, and how you found us. So please do drop me an email or a message on Instagram and say hi. I'd love to know who you are, where you are, what you do, and how we can help. If you are new, my name's Rebecca. I'm your host. Welcome. I am the co-owner of Silver Grey Foliage, which is our 2-acre flower farm in Leeds, West Yorkshire. We grow a perennial lead style. We're on an exposed, windy, wet, rabbity, deery site in Yorkshire. And our main work is wholesale, partnering with events, florists and DIY weddings. So that's what we do, but it's important to share that I have not always been a flower farmer and that I have 100% sat in the camp of today's subject topic, which is the everyday flower farmer job. So it's actually a matter that's really close to my heart because I understand what it's like when there's so many things competing for your attention, and that one of them you really want to be able to fill every gap and crevice of space that there is. I also wanted to ask you all to do two things at the end of this episode. I'm full of asks today, so I wanted to ask you to do two things. Firstly, join our newsletter, which you can do really easily. There's a link in the show notes, or head to our website, which is silvergreyfoliage.com. And the reason for that is that our newsletter is one of the places that I'm going to be the most this year. I will be on social media less, and that's mainly because of other priorities that are attracting my attention. I can only be in so many places at one time and practicing what I preach. Our newsletter will be fortnightly-ish this year, with a little bit of baggy planning, and it tells you what's going on. It tells you what's caught my eye, not always things that are directly flower farming related, but they're certainly allied, and if I'm sharing them in the newsletter, it's because I hope that they'll help you as much as they've helped me. And it also tells you how you can work with us. The second thing is just as important. Please leave a review for the podcast. I love reading the reviews, but actually it's not really for me. I'm not asking you to leave a review for me and my ego. I am asking you to leave a review for MULCH because it's a free podcast, and if you're listening and you're finding the advice and comments interesting or helpful, leaving a review helps the podcast to reach other flower farmers and flower growers both within the UK and around the world. So the way it works is a bit like Google. The more you tell Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast that you're enjoying it, that you're reading it, that you're paying attention, that you're listening, the more those services consider the podcast to be worthwhile and the more people they show it to. It really does help other people to find the podcast, and I'd be really grateful for your support in doing that. I really hope that other growers will be grateful for you having taken just a couple of minutes of your time to do the same. Thank you. So this week's episode is aimed at growers who have other roles. So you might be the main carer or a parent of a relative or a child. You might have a separate job, full-time or part-time, that is a thing that actually pays your bills right now. Or you might have other commitments that take up a defined proportion of your available hours each week. The title today is the everyday or the every time flower farmer job trap. The every time job trap isn't about the number of hours worked. It's about a business that occupies every available pocket of time, energy, and mental space, even when it's technically part-time. Quite reasonably, this might apply to many full-time flower farmers. And so I did choose the title with caution, but I really want to speak directly to those of you who are growing your flower farms alongside other roles, because it's flipping hard work. You're doing a phenomenal job, and it's really important to just think about this now. It's January. We're heading into a new, long, fruitful and bountiful year of abundant flowers and foliage. And so think about it now. Think about how you're going to manage your time, your attention, your focus, your rest, your energy levels, and put it into practice. Because what I'm saying is that the every time flower farmer job, the every time flower farmer business fills every evening, every weekend, every cubic millimetre of brain space, and it really soaks up your emotional capacity without being the role of a full-time, full-salary paying job yet. So the structure of today's podcast is a little bit different. I wanted to help you to work through these kind of thoughts and concepts if this applies to you. So I've set it up a little bit like an English teacher might do. So there are 2 or 3 parts to each element of the podcast to come. So first I'll make a point. And then there are some reflection questions which serve for you to be able to fill out your evidence and your expansion. And then I'd love you to take some time to come up with your response, which is your conclusion or your summative thoughts at the end. You don't have to do all of this in one go, and I know that many of you will choose to listen as you're working, as you're driving, and to think through the questions, and then maybe to respond in your journals at another point, or just to act on your thoughts as you're working through it. It's totally for you to decide. Okay, I'm going to start by asking what the every time flower farm job looks like. And to me, it looks like this: late night planning, seed ordering for relaxation, and hours lost to that kind of dopamine scroll of seed websites and plant websites. It looks like procrastination and thinking about the work that we're putting off doing, or the decisions that we need to make in a way that we would never permit in a day job, were it to be teaching, nursing, consultancy, childcare, and anything. We just wouldn't permit that degree of procrastination or kind of ignoring. And it's the mental reconsidering of everything, every possible decision in between tasks in the day job, and from the moment that you escape the day job, and from the minute you wake up in the morning, but not actually picking an action when you're thinking about things so much that would allow you to move forward and to allow you to focus in whatever the task is that you're supposed to be doing, or to allow you to just actually do nothing when you wake up in the morning and just brush your teeth, drink a cup of tea, observe the day and think, oh my goodness, these birds are gorgeous. It's all of those thoughts that can start running in our brains from every single kind of direction at every single time. So the questions I want you to think about answering are: when during the week does your flower business most often creep into time that was meant to be rest? Which parts of the business tend to expand to fill any available space? Are there moments when working on the business feels soothing rather than productive? And what do those moments give you? And if you paused before using a spare hour, what options might you notice that you usually skip past? And what would it feel like to decide in advance which pockets of time are for the business and which aren't? So when you've journaled or thought about those questions, you might want to think about how you would like it to look, what you would feel like if you made some changes. So here are 3 reasons why that kind of every time flower farm job might happen. And it might be one of these for you, or it might be more than one of these for you, or it might be something completely different. But have a little think. So, number 1. When you have another job, there's a sense that you have to prove yourself in the land of flower farming to demonstrate that it's a legitimate thing, not just having fun or a hobby on the side, or a side hustle as these things get called, but it's an actual business. Because the question arises regularly, is that really a thing? Or is that a real job? Or the follow-up statement, which is, but you aren't going to make any money doing that. And it leaves us feeling defensive. So this shows up as maybe taking too much time on your business, or growing more than we can handle to prove that growing is even possible for more than a border and a back garden, or saying yes to everything to show that there is work to be had. So here are your journaling or reflection points. In what ways do you feel the need to demonstrate that your flower business is real or legitimate? Whose expectations, real or imagined, do you think you're responding to when you take on more than you plan to? If tiredness wasn't a measure of seriousness, and that's deliberately phrased, if tiredness wasn't a measure of seriousness, what else might you use instead? And what might change if you trusted that this stage of your business is valid exactly as it is, without taking on more, doing more, showing more of what is possible? Think about your questions. Take some time to respond if and when you're available. So number 2. That kind of every time flower farmer job might show up as over-planning as a form of procrastination or a way of coping, and sometimes as a means of avoidance. So for those of you who know me, you'll know that I love to plan. The purpose of planning for me is that it means that when I'm actually getting on with the work, it takes less time because I know what needs doing. So it's for quite a defined period, usually no more than a week per quarter. So that's because there's a point where planning becomes a way of putting off getting started. And there's a point where over-planning leaves no space for failed seed germination, or time off for school holidays, or needing to visit a family member, or wanting to spend time with friends or to read a book. Over-planning becomes a way of using up time rather than a way of moving your business forward. So your journaling points here. Which kinds of planning feel grounding and helpful for you? So which kind of kinds of planning actually make a difference to your business? Which kinds of planning tend to leave you more scattered or stuck? So when you do things which give you so many things to do that you don't know where to start. What decisions do you find yourself circling around rather than making? So when you're making your plans, you are kind of going around in a spiral, but not really getting to a decision point and taking that decision. And if planning was meant to reduce further effort, where might it currently be doing the opposite? Okay. Number 3, The third reason that I wanted to name is that the every time flower farmer job, combined with a felt need to prove the value of your flower farm, often flows from not defining what enough looks like for you on your flower farm. Now, this is incredibly personal, and it's difficult to name because it's not necessarily what we want to hear as flower farmers. But I'm saying it because in our introduction, I really clearly state that we're going to talk about the difficult stuff as well as the fun stuff, with the intention of helping you to move your flower farm businesses forward. Because without knowing what you need to earn or setting boundaries around what you can reasonably do without burning out, enough becomes as much as I can manage, which often translates to more than is necessary, or more than is reasonable, or more than my actual capacity, creating that mid or end of season burnout. We'll be thinking on this in Grow Club. We'll be thinking about enough with our accountant Becky as part of our money sessions. So this isn't just for you if this episode is hitting home and it's feeling tough to hear. It's also for me as a flower farmer full-time, and for those in Grow Club who are really committing to growing their businesses this year. So, your journaling and reflection points. What would enough for this season look like if you described it in words rather than numbers? Which parts of your business feel as though you're operating without a natural stopping point? Do you usually decide when to stop adding more crops, more offers, more commitments? If you knew this year was about learning rather than maximising, and this might apply more if you're in your first 3 years, for example, what might you let go of? What might you not try to do more of, or do harder or bigger or better? And what would it mean to finish a year feeling steady rather than depleted? If this episode has brought up a few uncomfortable nods of recognition, that's okay. Awareness is often the first point of relief. The aim here isn't to strip back everything and to suddenly do less. It's to stop the business quietly taking up more time than it needs to. Sense that you should be doing more, and okay, so before I wrap up, I just wanted to gently remind you of a few things. So if you've listened to this and thought, yes, that's me, this is exactly what the business planning module is there for. It's there on our website to download, and it's yours for life. It's 40 quid. And it's not there to give you more to do. It's there to help you step back and create a bit of structure to decide what matters, what's realistic, what's seasonal, and what's simply not yours to carry right now. It's there to help you work out what enough looks like in a way that supports your life as it actually is, not the imaginary version where you've got limitless time and perfect weather and no fatigue. So if you've listened to this and thought, I need to get unstuck, go and use it. Even if you only do one small section, even if you only start by looking at the bit that feels most tangled, this still counts. And secondly, we've still got the Q&A coming up next Tuesday, so that's 27th of January at 8 p.m. in the evening, and that's a Q&A to help you with exactly moments like this. So if you've got yourself in a pickle or a knot that you can't untie, a decision that you keep circling around, a plan that keeps expanding, or you're just not sure what to prioritise when you're juggling the farm with everything else, come along, book your ticket. Bring that messy question, the one that's really stopping you from moving forward. Bring that half-formed thought, and bring the thing that you feel a bit embarrassed to ask, because I can promise you now, you won't be the only one. Sometimes all it takes is someone else helping you name what's actually going on, and suddenly you can get moving again. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you for listening. Genuinely, thank you for listening. I know that your time is precious. And just a quick reminder, because I'm full of reminders today, if you haven't already, please join our newsletter and please, please, please leave a review so that Spotify and Apple and all those other services and servers know that mulch is worth sharing with other growers who might benefit from some of the support and advice that we offer. Okay, thanks for joining us. I'll speak to you next week about something relating to flower farming in practice. I look forward to seeing you then. Rebecca.